Hi guys, this is Maker of a Beauty. Um, you might be surprised as to what you're looking at, but there is a rhyme and reason. I was getting a lot of questions about, well, how do you store the flowers? And the way I store them, I just plop them everywhere on my wall, just like I have it, for example, in my kitchen. There's the latest round of tutorials that I did, and they're the actual flowers. And once I have built up enough for a new backdrop, I'm actually going to make a tutorial on how I put the backdrop together. But that's what I do in order to make sure that my flowers stay lovely and fresh, so to speak, without getting too much damage. Although I have to say, they can take the beating pretty well. Oh, and actually, now that you guys looking right across, if you see where the what do you call it, the box of paper bag, right? That one is also full of flowers. It's got like a couple of roses and a couple of other templates, but I want to show you the bag, and unfortunately it doesn't do a very good job. But I use the 3M strips. There are several different kinds of them, but the one that I have is like very tiny. It's very easy to put it on, very easy to turn it off, take it off, and does a great job of holding the flower flat on a wall without, like falling off. In my living room, I'm not gonna go there right now because it's pretty dark and the video is not gonna work very well. In my living room, I have actually large size roses. They are 18 to 22 inches, which is pretty heavy, and they, just with the 3M strips, they do a great job. So let me see if I can try to get okay, well, you get an idea. So that's what I do as I work on a backdrop. And that works for me, not only because, I don't do like so many backdrops. I don't know what my storage situation would look like if I was to do the backdrops for rental. That was definitely one of the concerns for me when I was considering doing the backdrop as a side business. In any case, starting my tutorial with this preview, and then I'm gonna switch over to making a video over a table and show you my next tutorial. Hi guys, this is Maker of Beauty. Welcome and hello. Today I'm going to be putting together what I've titled as the template number 18. And typically what I do with my templates when I design it, and by design I really mean that I just draw it with a pen tool using an application called 𝐓𝐨𝐿. If you end up going out and looking at it, it's a cloud-based application, and you do not need to purchase the full access. Even with the free access, where you do have to create an account, the pen tool is still available to you. The thing though with a pen tool, right, and that doesn't matter which graphic application you use, it's not very intuitive, and it's very tricky, and it's very hard to align the right side to the left side. I'm really amazed that people master it and they create this amazing complex graphics. But what I typically do is I have an idea, of what not the shape, right, but more of like the waves and ups and downs of a petals that I want to do, and then just put all the points, and I connect those points, and then I start to play with them, and at the end of it, I might end up with a petal that I didn't even envision at the very beginning, but it's shaping up pretty good, and so I just stop there. And some of it are easier than others, but once I have the petal and it looks proportionate to my eye, I will normally cut it out. I put it together myself, and then I'll deem it whether or not it's a good flower. So with this one, I had done the petal, but I have not put it together. This is literally my first time trying to put it together, so I'm going to be winging it, and I'll show you how I think it is for a lot of people, right? Whether they draw the petal by hand, maybe they use different shapes and they put together a petal. It's, there's quite a bit of winging. So unlike a lot of my petals, this petal has a pretty thick base. relative to its top, right? Because normally I have it pretty thin where the top of it is pretty wide, and then it gets a very good incline towards the end, and the towards the bottom is pretty thin. Here it's quite different. So let's do the measurements together, because I've cut all of these petals quite a long time ago, and I haven't looked at a project to see what I've set it to. So I'm gonna just measure it with you, and it is 5 inches height, and at its highest point it's 5 inches as well, so it's 5 by 5, and my base is about 8 inches. And so with this petal, I think right off the bat I will be curling it one side up and one side down. As you know, always I know that I need to do my slit higher, because I just set my slit to 2 inches for most of my petals, and I know that that's not always the height it needs to have. And as you can see, all of them are exactly the same size. So I'm hoping at the end of this exercise to get a very fluffy petal. Without any further ado, let's increase our slit just a little bit, and I'm gonna go and make the same with this one. And so what I will be doing with this petal, I'm not gonna stick to my usual 6 petal for each layer, because I can tell you that in order for this to be 6 petals, I would have to have a larger base, but I'm also unsure if the 6 is going to look the best, because I do want my petals to overlap this time. And so with that in mind, I'm not going to commit right off the bat to just having 6 petals. I'm gonna be layering them, and then as I put the petal together, well, the flower together, I'll know whether or not I need to be making it 7 or 8. So this is my starting point, and like I said, I wanted to do it up and down. I'm using my wooden stick, else with this petal there's quite a bit of a real estate, so I could curl it just using my bone knife. You don't have to have this knife, you can just use a butter knife and it will work just as great. So I'm gonna curl maybe 7 and see if that's gonna be enough to cover this full diameter, and if not, then I'm just going to grab the 8th one. And notice that I have quite a bit of a real estate space right with this petal, and so I am tucking it all in to give it a nice and a tight curl. Oh, okay, I think I got a little bit too much on this one. I'm gonna try to open it up with my bone knife, where I'll just straighten it out and do more of a curl on the top and not so much on the bottom. Okay. And I remember when I was first learning how to curl the petals, I believe it was Pearl's video that I saw, and she only uses this tool, at least in the videos that I've seen. And when I first started to work with it, it was actually leaving quite a good number of marks for me. And the key is really just learning how to not put too much of a power on your finger to where you hold the flower. Okay, so I'm gonna grab one more, and I think that's gonna be 7. I don't know. I know that I will probably be curling them the opposite direction for my next layer, but I don't know that just yet. So for now, I'm gonna stick at stopping at 7, put the first layer together, and then I'll see how it looks. All right, so my curl is done. As you can see, it's right here. And now I'm gonna start with my gluing. And if this is the very first video of mine that you're watching, just remember that you want to really press it down when you put your glue, because oh, it's really hot. Oh, it's already burning my fingers. You really want to press it down to make sure that you're not end up with just like a little tiny glob of glue that adheres like a little mountain. You know, if you spread your glue everywhere, it will hold your paper much better, and it will also make sure that it doesn't come apart. And should you have already watched a couple of my videos, I apologize, I'm sounding like a broken record. So I got all of my petals glued on, and now we're gonna start lining them up in here. And I know that I want the petals to overlap, right? So I'm not gonna worry about putting my second petal across the first one, because I just wanted to go in a circle. So, and since I know that I want to be able to tuck it in under the last one, I will for sure be leaving the space unglued on this side. And if you are someone who's layering it, your petal, instead of going clockwork, right, the opposite of it, you just need to make sure that you glue this side on and you leave this side empty. I tend to go towards the right, make circle that way. I'm guessing that's just how my brain works best. Okay, and as you can see, I made it pretty flat, and the reason to that is because I know that my next layer is going to be the same side and the same amount of curl to it, so I want to make sure that I'm leaving plenty of a space to it, right? And like I said, I like my flowers pretty open as opposed to having it like, you know, all squeezed in. Now notice that if you don't pay attention to where you put your second layers, right, relative to the first one, you just put it in, like even I, like, you know, first time when I put it on, I brought this side much more further in than I have my first one. I mean, I'm gonna try bring it up and you guys should be able to see it, right? It's like a good almost an inch difference. So that's a very common mistake that I see newbies make, right, where they will position the second petal or subsequent petals as if they were like the first petal that they start with, and as a result of it, it screws up the sizing of the flower. So that's just something to be mindful about and remember. Okay, now I want it to overlap, but not like too much, and you know, make sure I don't bring in my this side, you know, too much in. So that looks pretty good to me. And I have a feeling that 7 petals is not going to be enough, but we shall see. At this point, I'm not tucking anything in, you know, so I'm putting my glob of glue all across. And I'm basically trying to maintain a circle inside. And I've seen a video, I think it was the 𝐒𝐭𝐤 flowers, where she has, you know, a second cut out circle, basically like this, right? I mean, this is not the right size. Well, actually, it's a pretty good size, close to it. And she suggested, you know, you put that on the top and like secure it in the middle, so that helps you to stay even as you position your petals, you know. And I think that's a very good advice when you are just starting out. That's definitely a very good visual aid tool to help you to stay in wasn't the correct diameter. You know, I mean, my eyes are trained, and so I'm gonna skip it. Okay, so since I'm gonna have quite a bit of real estate space to fill up, I'm just gonna be talking about some other things. One of the things that I wanted to cover at some point in my tutorials is my take on the whole conversation that petals are not unlimited, you know, and there is quite a bit of a repetition between the artists, and that's very true. I mean, there's only so much you can do without somebody, you know, liking it and trying to make its own variation. I mean, I do have some petals, right, where like the top of it is like, I haven't seen it from anyone. Like, I'm actually gonna grab one right now. Like, this is the one that I'm working on. you know, it's pretty spiky, and I haven't like really seen anybody have such a spiky flower. So, you know, that's different, but still, you know, you only have so much creativity with regards to how many different designs you can do on a top. I think it's a little bit different with lace flowers, right? Like there, it's a whole different ball game. By the way, they're very tedious to make, but you know, so yes, you're right. There's definitely quite a bit of a repetition or similarity, if you will, between the people who do the templates and offer it, you know, for sale, like, you know, such as I do, for example. Let's see, I definitely need one more petal. The question is, do I need two or do I just need one? I think I'd like to only have one, so I'm going to position this one a little bit like this, and I'm just gonna mark it to see if it's kind of like almost there. See, like if I put this one over here and try to squeeze in two, then it becomes a little bit too much of overlap, and I don't want that. So I'm still going to stick with only putting in one more in here, but what I'm going to do is, like, you know, my overlap here is going to be like only so very little. And this is just how you can, you know, manipulate and adjust, like, you know, pretty much on a fly. And what that tells me is that the base should probably be reduced to maybe 7 inches instead of having the 8 inches. All right, so looks like I have to curl one more petal, so I'm going to do that very quickly. Now I do think that this petal would look lovely if you were to make this as a large, medium, and small, but this, I'm just using this tutorial as an opportunity to show you that it does not have to be the exact number of petals. And as a matter of fact, I have a couple of flowers that I made out of like the leftovers and scraps. And you know what, actually I need to, okay, let's see. It's clear that this is too much of a space to just put in one petal. So what I should have done, either overlapped a lot less, which I don't think it would have been a good idea with 8-inch base, or I should have overlapped a little more and leave a little bit more space for the 2 additional petals. So what I'm going to do is, because I did not overlap this one too much, I'm actually going to remove it, and I'm gonna go very, very gentle without messing up the petal too much. Like, I don't like that it's all the way on the very base, and I really glued it on very well, didn't I? Let's see. Okay, so it looks like something is happening here. Now, if I was to make this flower to sell, then I would probably just, you know, keep this flower and it would make it completely brand new. However, since I typically do it, you know, for the backdrops, it's fine. It's not going to be noticeable at all. You know, nobody's going to be inspecting an individual petal. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm going to give it a little bit more overlap to open up the real estate space for my 2 petals now. So it has, you know, more of a consistent look. I mean, I'm slightly off, but we're gonna see together what it's gonna look like at the end. Okay, so this one, I have to definitely open up my slit. This one is a little bit trickier, but still, the paper is sturdy enough to let me do the manipulations. And I'm just gonna squeeze it a little bit a bit more than previously to reduce my base to allow to put in 2 petals in this spot without squishing it too much. That's the reason why I unglued this one and I'm redoing it. Okay, so you can see it, right, how I've reduced, you know, about like 1/2 inch. And I'm gonna do the same thing with the next one. Let me quickly curl it up, and this side is going down. And this one is coming back up. Any case, so going back to my previous conversation about, you know, how do you feel about everybody having similar petals? So, you know, the shape could be similar. You know, the dimensions are often, though, different, and also the artistry is coming in, and you know how you end up putting your petal together and how versatile the petal is with regards to, like, can I reshape it by adjusting the size? You know, it's like if I like some of my petals, if you just change them and you make them thinner, right, you could totally treat it as a second petal and make a completely different flower. Okay, so again, with this one, right, I'm giving it a pretty generous overlap, more so than was previous, and that's all, you know, to make sure that I have the real estate space to put in 2 petals, because it's kind of like in between. It's a little too much for 1 petal, and it's a tad too tight for 2 petals, but it is what it is. It's all gonna, I believe, come out just beautiful at the end. So I do know that in some instances, right, like some artists, you know, you're taking a class with them and whatever, and they will pretty much like flat out say that you may not repeat my work, or like it has to be like, you know, drastically different. But I certainly don't feel like that's my place to say that to anyone. I've just learned how to do the graphic designs on my own. My background is in a technical IT. I am actually a healthcare IT by daytime. All right, so this is looking quite beautiful, guys. I'm very, very pleased. So we're gonna put in the last petal tucked away by our very first petal, which is why I left one side completely empty, because it's just so much nicer, right? If it's tucked it in under, as opposed to like leave it open, overlapping on the top. So I'm gonna give it a glue, and I'm going to carefully slide it under. I'm going to glue it right here. Oh, I brought my side a little too much down, so I'm going to adjust that while the glue is still hot enough and allows me to reposition it. Okay, I'm just going to use the knife. And now I'm going to lift this up and put a dab and close it. And this time I'm just going to use this stick and put it in. Now I'm going to put a short video that I took that answered question like, what do you do with all these petals? I mean, flowers that you are making as a part of your tutorial. How you storing them. I don't have a good answer for that. At one point, I was actually considering to do like a backdrop rental. And let's see, let me stop for a second. Let me count how many petals I have. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so it looks like it's going to be 2 layers only, and I think for the curls that this petal has, it's going to be just fine. But I will be curling this the opposite way of that one. And now actually, guys, right, as I'm looking at this petal, I think what would be fun to do with this is alternate the curling, not per layer, but actually per petal itself, right? So it would be like we have how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, it would be a little bit difficult to work with 9 petals. It would be much better if you did it would be easier if you did even number, right? Yeah. So, you know, if you adjust this base to 7 inches, then you will only need to have 8 petals on the first layer. And what would be fun is that, you know, this one goes curling down, up, and then the other one is reversed, or maybe, you know, the reverse it like every second petal. So, you know, these two are up, these two are down. So I think that would be fun. It definitely has the real estate space where you would not be crowding your curling so much that you wouldn't be able to see which way it's going. All right, so in my case, I'm gonna be doing 3 of them at a time, actually, maybe even 4. I'm gonna be doing just simply, you know, the reverse of the previous layer. And so this side needs to come up, so I'm just gonna put it on the bottom. I'm just gonna give it a good nice tuck and roll it back and forth like a rolling pin. All right, so at the beginning of this tutorial, if you're watching it, what you're gonna get is a short video where I show you where I store my flowers, and there is no big secret. It is my vaults. I am pretty neat and organized person, and I don't like to have boxes. And we live in a good size townhouse, but I have 2 kids. You know, we do have sinks, although I try to be as minimalistic as possible. And so, you know, I also don't want to store everything like on a second floor, and then when you have to go somewhere and bring your flowers, it's a lot of work to like schlep them up and down, up and down. So when I was thinking about doing the backdrops, that was a real consideration to me. I mean, I decided not to go with a backdrop rental, which is how I ended up investing a lot more time into learning how to do 2 templates, and, you know, hope to make my money by selling the templates and some of the tutorials on the how-tos. But for now, you know, when I do it for my friends and whatever, as I build them, I just plop them on the wall. And then once I attach them to my backdrop itself, right, which typically is a foam board, I have a space in my basement, and I basically, you know, like stack them up flat. And at some point I will do a tutorial on that when I have enough of the flowers to put together a new backdrop. And it's going to be a beautiful pearly champagne color, which is what I'm working with now, and the metallic gold, which is what I use for the centers right now, but I'm gonna reverse it, right, because I want to have different colors. In any case, now I'm starting to glue my petals, and magically I'm gonna have all of them done in literally a second. Okay, so I have all of my petals glued on, and now I need to figure out how I want to style my second layer. And so here's my petal. It's exactly the same size as the previous one, and let's see. So definitely want to go in between, right, because if you put it like over the previous one, then you're completely covering the curl. It just doesn't look good. But if you, however, position it in between, then you can see the first layer curls plus, you know, the new one. But I can see that I'm gonna have to put it in pretty deep, because if I'm gonna try to push it up, right, because normally I would probably, if it was not as curly top, I would, you know, have my second layer probably glued on here. But if I do it here in this case, what that happens is, what that does, it completely covers up all of the curls underneath. And so I'm going to bring it low, which reduces my real estate space to work with quite a bit, which means what I will end up having is less of the petals going this around than the first one, which is fine. You know, it's pretty fluffy. It's perfectly okay. And you know, you don't have to have, oh, you know what I did, guys? I put the glue on one side, which I should have left it open because I don't want to glue it in. So I'm just going to hold it in my hand like this to wait for the glue to dry up, because I want to leave the space for me to be able to tuck my petals in. There is this one Polish artist I follow, and she does very big fluffy flowers, and it just speaks to me. I love big fluffy flowers, and I kind of feel that in my, okay, so here comes my next one, and it's going to go right over here. She makes them so fluffy, and I just love it. Like, I love looking at her work because I mean, like the straight line, open flower. I mean, like, yes, they're beautiful, but they just don't speak to me. Like, I can admire them for the proportionate and symmetry, but they just don't speak to me as much as the my fluffy flowers do. Okay, so definitely a lot of curls, guys. So you just have to be careful, make sure that the curls don't, you know, end up crumpling each other too much. So we're gonna curl this one a little bit more, like this. And you know, if you need to adjust something, right, like on a fly, you just do. I mean, like, you stick it in the tool in there and you give it a little bit more of a curl, and so that lays a little bit better. And you know, it's like when you are working with big backdrops, you know, it's like a lot of this, imperfections, they really blend in. I mean, I just recently posted a backdrop, and I've gotten so many compliments because it was really beautiful. And there are all kind of things that we did, you know, to make sure that we popped the colors out. And you know, like, we had a number of pretty flat flowers, and so, you know, when you have a backdrop that is a combination of roses and flat flowers, it's a big gap, because what there's, you know, when you make a rose where you use the leg for it, right? I have like 7 rose templates, by the way. Any case, when you do the rose with a leg extension, it ends up being pretty tall, and there is just no way for you to make it as flat as like this flower even, right? And so then if you put, you know, here's my cup of tea, I'm just going to use that as a visual. If you're putting this, a tall flower that is coming all the way out in here, and this one is flat, right? That's a big gap. I mean, it really stands out. So the question is, what do you do to bring them on the same line so visually it gives you that one straight look? And we did all kind of things in the back in order to get that flat, even look. I will definitely cover that when I be putting in this tutorial, because I plan to make a decent number of roses for this. So I will have a chance to go into the details, into what it is that I mean. Okay, so this is getting a little bit tight because of the curls, but that's fine. That's why I'm gonna give it like a beautiful fluffy look. Let's see, so I think it's just gonna be this one and that one, and we're gonna call it good. So as you can see it, right, this is, if you look at the petal itself, it's pretty simple petal. I mean, like, there's really not much to it. And I have designed this petal in both in Design Space, just using the shapes, and I also did it in a graphic design tool. And there is a reason why I did that. That was actually helping me to learn how to trace things in a graphic design tool, so I could understand how to curve the pen tool itself. But any case, you know, so like, if you think about it, right, this is a very simple petal. Like, you know, there's really not much to it, but just consider the possibilities of what you could be doing with it, just with regard to the curling, right? And the nice thing about it is that I don't have to worry about reducing it by anything, right? I mean, I just left it everything one. Okay, I need to bring it a little bit more on this side. Okay, that's much better. You know, it's one size petal. I mean, that's just beautiful to me. It's because I prefer to cut everything with a Cricut. You know, if I have a lot of sizes to work with for one petal, keeping a track of it can get a little bit hectic, and I just have to be, you know, paying so much more attention to it. So far I'm definitely loving this petal because it is proving to be very versatile. Okay, now I'm going to give it a little bit more of a glue into this one to make sure that it stays flat and nice and tidy. And I'm going to give a little bit more of a glue on, actually on some and several of them. That's going to ensure that our flower is not floppy. It's very hard to work with a flower when it's floppy. For the beautiful burgundy silver white backdrop that I did, one of the burgundy colors was a construction paper, which I don't believe is 65 LBC. I mean, it says that it's 65, but it certainly did not feel as heavy as my 65 cardstock from Michaels, right? And I mean, it cut okay, but oh boy, you know, the petals were pretty floppy. Like, we had to secure the bases quite a bit. And one of the ways was to just put, you know, a glue in many different places. Okay, so I'm almost there, guys. All right, so this is done, and now I need to think about what to do for the center. And I think what I'm gonna do is, darn it, this one is a little too small. I was hoping that it would be a tad bigger. Let me think about this. I'm just gonna try to wing something. All right, so this is me thinking out loud, right? Just doing a fluffy center like this by itself is not gonna be enough. I would have to like cut it full on like 12 by 12, which I don't have, right? So what I'm thinking is maybe I can curl this around this styrofoam bowl, and I think that would actually look okay. Let me just make sure and see how round it would go, like if I should change the size or if I should leave it this one. And I think, yeah, I need that smaller styrofoam bowl, so maybe next size. Let's see how that's gonna look. So if I have this, right, and I'm just rolling it around it, that will give me a bit more of a roll around, and then I will open it up this way. Yep, okay, so I think we have a winner, and that's what I am going with. And so I am going to show you a few things I've talked about in my very first tutorial, that I do not like to leave any of my paper wasted, right? And a lot of times I will literally fill it up with some sort of a fill-in. And so what you guys looking at is exactly that, right? It's my fill-ins. I like literally have bags and bags and bags of them. It's you know, I mean, it's like, here I have a gold, and so what I'm thinking, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the center, I'm gonna cut it in half, and I'm gonna use this flowers to cover it up nicely, and then I'm going to roll this fringe around it, press the fringe down, and this will pop out as a center. It's going to be beautiful. What I'm trying to decide is whether I should be using white flowers or gold. And I think I'm actually going to use white, so this way there is a bit of a contrast. But you see all this, guys, this is literally me squeezing out everything to the last possible inch in my paper. And you know what, guys, I just had a moment of clarity. I'm going to make my life a little bit easier on myself because it appears that I have a cut out layered flower. So I'm not gonna bother with doing the styrofoam ball, which is still a beautiful idea. Instead, I'm going to be making layered flower. But the rest of it, I'm still going to stick with using the gold fringe to wrap around it. I mean, who knows, maybe I'll make both. I'll see how I'm doing on time. Unfortunately, when I'm making the video, I'll be curling it with my bone fine knife. So I'm just gonna curl it up downward. All right, I'm gonna get out my trusted tool for my layered flowers. I do not know how I left without this, guys, because I tried to manipulate and do all kind of different things with my hands, but I would just end up damaging the paper more so than others. I even tried to like sprinkle it with water because that's supposed to help with making it a little bit softer to work with. It did not work for me at all. Okay, so what I have is here is two petals the same size, and then this one is small and this one is a smaller. I will probably end up putting whatchamacallit, the pearl inside. Okay, so now I'm actually curling this petal is, you know, like up and down, and I'm going to do them in reverse direction, right? So I'm going to be skipping every other petal. So I'm going to leave this one alone because I will curl it the opposite direction and just flip it. And the same thing again, right? I'm skipping it over here and I'm having this side to go down. Flip it. Okay, now for the ones that I did not touch, right, now I'm going to be doing the reverse. So with this one, right, this is going to come down and this side is going to go up. And you know, I actually do have to, like, sometimes to pause and think, right, oh hey, which way am I going now? It doesn't come easy to me at all, guys. All right, so with this one, this is going down. Hold on, see? I made a mistake. Okay, so it's the reverse. I want this to go down, so I need to go that direction. Okay, I'm gonna bring this up, hold this a little bit. Okay, and as you can see it, right, it's slowly raising things for me. And now I'm going to put it in my palm and I'm just going to press it down to raise it a little bit even more. And you can also just, you know, like bend it at the base of the petal slightly, like not too much, but just a bit. You don't want to have it so high that it just looks unnatural. And when I position my petal, it's basically, you know, like doing it in between this, and I need something to hold it in place. And a lot of times what I will do, I'll actually pick it up, I'll put this back on the mat and I press it down to give it, you know, a bit more to continue to get my rise look. Okay. And ideally, I would have liked to have a little bit more petals to work with to give it, you know, like to make it a fuller flower. But this is what I have, and you know, I'll make it work with this one as well. Okay, so in here, I'm just gonna not bother, and I'm gonna curl all of them the same way to make it easier on myself. gonna flip it and go this way. Okay, so with the small flowers, right, I find the proportions are so important. Like with this one, I mean, it's just it's not the best one that I have, right? The cut needs to come down a little bit more of this, and like with this particular shape, it's kind of difficult to get very creative. Okay, so now I'm going to squeeze this just a tad on the bottom. You know, try to be careful with the top flowers, and you know, I'm afraid that if I squeeze it, you know, normally I would, I'm gonna break the curl. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lift it up by pressing on the base of the flower, but be careful, make sure that you don't end up accidentally, you know, like tearing it. All right, so I'm gonna position that right in between these two, and it's starting to rise up very nicely. Basically, if you ever want to give it a bit more of a height, what you can do is you can take a dot glue if you guys have it. I love those. I'm not gonna bother with it, but you definitely can. Or like there's this dots that you can buy from like Michael's. I don't know if I mean, I'm sure like they have them in other craft stores, right? And what ends up doing it, it will like raise it up for you, so it gives you that nice height. I do that with one of my petals. Okay, so here, actually it doesn't matter, I'm going to be squeezing this pretty hard, so I'm still curling it in the same direction. Actually, you know what, guys, I'm going to change this up a little bit, because if I curl this, it's just going to get lost in there. For this one, I am going to curl every other side, one side down and one side up. So I'm going to flip it, and this is going to go up. One, two, three, four, five, six, right? So why is it not? Okay, up, down, okay, right. So I guess, all right, so I have this one ready as well. I'm going to roll it up and try to raise it as much as I can. And this one I will definitely squish in a little bit more, and what I want to do is you want to squish it like on the bottom, to squeeze it in as much as you can, but not too much. And I'm gonna put the dab of glue right there, and on this one, right, I'm gonna put the glue like a little bit off center and sort of like a circle, so this adheres on the bottom to the other flowers, and it just stays. Straight up and not so much flat. Okay, so I have this done, and I know that I have a gold pearl somewhere, so I'm gonna find that gold pearl and put that right in the middle. Okay, here's my gold pearl, and now I'm gonna try to get that inside, and I see that this side is a little bit too much of a high, right? I want it to lay down, so I'm gonna try to fix that using this tool and see if I can just force the paper down, and if not, I might have to glue it, but I'll see what I can do. So I'm just gonna hold that and pinch it in. Okay, so that's pretty good. That looks pretty legit to me. Now I'm gonna give it a glue on the bottom of my pearl, just a little bit, a little bit more in here, but not too much. And in situations like this, right, when I start working with something this small, using a glue called glitter glue is the best, because it's very powerful. You only need a tiny dab, and you don't have that glove that you end up having with the hot glue. Okay, so my pearl is in, and it looks very nice. So here's my layered flower, And now what I'm going to do is finish up my fringe, and I'll show you what I have in mind of what I want to do with it. So I need to get rid of my ends, guys, because I cut all this from the same file, and it's missing a couple of the lines, and so this is much thicker than the rest of the stuff, and I'm just adjusting it by cutting it off. So later on, if I want to print this again, I'll need to go to my file and either slice this off or add a couple more lines. Okay, so I'm just gonna glue this, you know, one end meet the other end type of deal, and I'm gonna do the same thing on this one, and I'm just gonna use my knife very quickly to smooth it out. Okay, same thing here. Great. Now I'm just going to give it a dab of a glue in the middle. Okay, so this is ready, right? But what I want is that I wanted to have it open, you know, like pretty wide. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use I'm going to use this as a placeholder to let me glue the fringe around it, so I have it that big open center, and then on the top of it, right, I'll put my flower. So I'll show you what I mean. So I'm taking this right here and I'm just bringing it over. And it doesn't have to be a styrofoam bowl, you know, it can be anything else. It's just what I have right around near me, and so that's what I'm grabbing. Okay, so I'm gonna try to hold this down with one finger. I really don't want to get burned. Okay, so that's what I'm going for. Now that I have my hole, sounds a little terrible, I don't know why, I can get rid of the styrofoam bowl and just finishing up right here. Okay, so here you have it. I mean, I would have liked for it to be, you know, the full round center, but it is what it is. You know, like I want to be pretty transparent and honest as to how the magic happens, and so you see it live, so to speak. So I need to have all this flattened. So what I'm gonna do is I'm pretty much gonna turn it over and gently pull the fringes out and press this down. You gotta be careful, right? Because you don't want them to get all squished and stuff. And you know, you don't want this to be a pretty thin fringes, because I think that would be like a nightmare to work with. And I just, you know, I'm just trying to open it as much as I can. Let me see how that looks. Do I need to hide this? All I'm doing right now is trying to figure out if I need to hide this, because I'm going for the consistent look. Or is it okay? All right, guys, so I think, let me see. I'm just going to compare the two. I don't want it like a mismatch, right, where one side looks fluffy and the other one looks kind of skinny. So we're gonna see. Oh. Yep, okay, so it looks like I will have to cut off this part, only because, you know, it's very visible that one side is fluffier than the other. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to carefully separate the two. Let's see, so this one is a second row as well, right? So I'm just going to bring it down. Nope, that can stay there. And this needs to stay here, and this few need to come up. Yep, okay. So I have my even stuff, and so what I'm going to do is basically get in there with my scissors and literally chop this off. And the reason I don't want to make like a pretty video where I cut out like, you know, the parts where I make mistakes and whatnot is that I want to encourage you. I mean, you know, if you are somebody who wants to make the flowers and like sell it to people, you know, don't just, you know, waste your product and start like a brand new and say like, oh, well, you know, boo-hoo, I messed up. You know, I mean, just don't. Like a lot of these imperfections can be covered up, you know, because like I know that one sheet of paper is 79 cents, but you know, it took the time for you to set everything up in the design space, and then you had to wait for it to get cut out, and then, you know, you had to you know, think about how you're gonna put it together. I mean, it's like, it's all time. And one thing is that, you know, while the time itself is, I don't know, infinite, you know, like our time is not infinite. Okay. I'm gonna have everything pressed down, and it's looking quite beautiful, if I may say so myself. Now, the only thing that I have left to do is to, you know, separate this two from one to another, because when I was cutting this, I did not clean my knife very well, and so what ended up happening is that my fringes didn't quite get cut through. So I just want to separate them out one by one. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, maybe I'll glue all of it together. Let me see, guys, see how I should do it. Okay, so the first thing is I'm actually going to cover this base, right? The reason is that because, you know, my center is not so fluffy that it's going to cover everything, you know, like nice, and I don't have to worry about it, that the base is pink color. Now I have this extra petal, right? There's nothing that I can do with it now, so I'm going to use this petal to cover that up. And that's what I mean by saying that I don't waste my material, especially, again, right, if I know that I'm not going to be selling this petal. By the way, as it discovers, I actually have one additional petal. In any case, I'm just going to make a circle. I think I need a little bit bigger circle, but I'm just going to wing it and do something approximately like a circle. And so, you know, if you guys, you know, like interested in making your backdrops, be prepared for having a lot of moments like that. I mean, but if you're somebody who's very, very experienced and you're still watching my video, first of all, thank you. I appreciate that. But if you're somebody who's not experienced, right, like I said, be prepared for a lot of moments like that. So don't worry that it gets messed up. It's okay. All right, so it's almost perfect. Now I'm just gonna cover this pink side. I'm just gonna put a whole bunch of glue. Okay, this is good. My stick, so save and take mercy on my fingers. I get burned enough. I'm gonna go with a knife. and just, all right, now I'm gonna flip my center and put it in. Should I put it in like this? Nope, I'm gonna put it this way because I want it to stand up just a tad, right? So I'm gonna put my glue near that. Have to be careful because it's pretty thin. Okay, so here's my glue. It's going right in the middle. It looks great. Okay, and then will go my flower right there on the top. Do I see some glue there? No. Okay, everything looks wonderful. Okay, now I'm going to very generously to cover this with a glue. Okay, I believe it's a wide enough radius. And if not, I'm just gonna take it off and try it again. And it's not enough. Okay, so where my glue's at versus where it really needs to be is a drastic difference. It looks like what I need to do, guys, is I need to put a glue along my petals. Like it's... Okay, so I glued on my flower, and there you guys have it. A beautiful flower. I think this particular petal is gonna be wonderful for having super large flowers. And let's just see how big this one is. Yeah, 15 inches, so it's not bad at all. So the first layer, it was 8 petals, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, 9 petals. And the second one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And this second layer is 7. So if you guys were to make your petal 6 inches, get your base to maybe 10 inches, you could easily get 6 inches, 12, 10. So you're looking at over 20 some inches flower. And if you are going for a fancy, 8x8 backdrop or even bigger than that, this is definitely a good one to have to fill it in. In any case, thank you for watching it. Please visit me at my Etsy shop. I appreciate all the leads, references, referrals. That's how the word gets around. And until my next tutorial, take care.